everything that we have, in the preps. So you can just cut me anytime if you have questions. Unmute yourself, just present it. So SAGE is the Students Academy for Global Entrepreneurship. The reason why I built SAGE, and we welcome you. Just want to give you a little bit more information on my background and who am I. First and foremost, I'm the father of this punk. She's 12, will be 12 in about 3 weeks. And one reason that I'm really, really interested in child education, regardless of the topic, is Ada. And while looking into her future, I had always the pleasure to see from a broader lens, from a global perspective. I lived abroad for a long time. I lived in MENA. The plus T is Turkey. I lived in MENA for a while, running operations and accelerated programs. I lived in Silicon Valley in multiple places, running operations and investing in startups. And out of the experience, we touched hundreds of startups. Some we invested in, some we put into our accelerated programs. But I learned a lot about how to get the individuals to the right mindset and to the right technology. I was recognized by UC Berkeley as a global ambassador, starting from this year, which is something I'm very proud of. And also during COVID, I got a certification of training. So I'm able to train Stanford's Center for Professional Development for an institution called Global Innovation Catalyst. So I ran 7 accelerated programs for Stanford over the last year. But what excites me more is my work and my ambition to help the 21st century skill sets be engraved in the students. World Economic Forum has said, done extensive reports, especially during COVID, education was hit hard. And they came up with skill sets that are necessary, not only for the students, but also for adults going forward. And they summarize it into 3 different categories: literacies, competencies, and character qualities. And once I was looking into these skill sets and looking into my daughter's education journey, I realized one thing very deeply, that all of these skill sets, almost all of these skill sets, can be enhanced, can be introduced to the kids, to teenagers, let's say over the age of 10, through involvement and understanding on entrepreneurship and innovation. Initiative taking, curiosity, let me take Burak as well, creativity, communication, collaboration, financial literacy, cultural literacy, all of these skills are absolutely necessary for an entrepreneur to be successful. Therefore, we started thinking with colleagues and developed a curriculum for a high school and a university to teach high school students these skill sets via awareness through entrepreneurship and innovation. So why now is very important for parents? Why this kind of skills building is very important for parents? One, we will go into details in a little bit, but there is a technological abundance in the world, but talent is becoming scarce. So actually teenagers and parents don't feel they are ready for the future. The other element is companies with old business models that are older than ourselves are dying much faster. So there is a high probability that our children will work in startups that are not even yet established. They're not going to want to work with these large 100-year-old companies because they will be in decline. So this is a very important why now for parents. And the other part is that's critical is 10 years ago, we used to think entrepreneurs are born. You are born with the skill sets that's necessary, and it cannot be taught. But now we know that's not true. So it's been a very fast progress in entrepreneurship teaching. And now we know entrepreneurship can be taught, entrepreneurship can be broadened through multiple learning methodologies. And entrepreneurship is not only about building a for-profit company. Entrepreneurship could be social entrepreneurship, could be corporate entrepreneurship, could be government entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a concept, it's a mindset. It can be applied to for-profit context, but it can also be used to solve the world's pressing problems. I'll go through this really quickly and what I meant by the age of abundance. This is a graph of number of transistors on microchips. Going through 1970 to 2020, there is an enormous boom in our ability to do computations. That enormous boom is also very obvious in the supercomputer powers. It has been becoming cheaper by the time it passes. And it's not only like these electronics miracles, science, the core science of human studies, gene sciences, genome sciences, have been very easily scaled through the expansion of technology. This is going to be the norm, and things will be picking up pace even after. However, there are things that are also exponentially growing that we would not like to see. One of that is the college tuition fees and education, the cost of childcare, the cost of medical care. These are also increasing at cost depending on what they used to cost almost 20 years ago. Now, this gives us the problem set where education will be more expensive. Getting into a good institution and having a good career is going to be more difficult. On the other hand, building a startup is becoming very easy. Getting funding for a startup is becoming very easy. Actually, every day in 2021, since the beginning of this year, there has been at least one unicorn somewhere in the world, which means $1 billion company that existed only 3 or 5 years, that was built only 3 or 5 years ago, is now becoming more valuable than the companies that were 50, 60, 100 years old. This is not going to change. The companies that our children will start working when they graduate are not founded yet. Our children will work in younger companies, and we need to start getting them ready for this. The large enterprises are in peril. We are used to Kodak age, the Kodak moments or Radio Shacks or anything on the left side. Now we see Salesforce, Google, Priceline, eBay, and even some of the logos on the middle has already started to lose ground. So we don't know who will die next, which is really scary if you look at from the technology perspective. Are we working ourselves as adults? Are we working in the Netflixes of the world or the Blockbusters of the world? We actually don't know pretty well. So the world is changing really fast. The economic environment is really changing fast. What comes to our rescue to me is the ability to teach startups to build models at a cheaper and more scalable way. So these three gentlemen have brought together a lot of additional content and a movement to teach entrepreneurs. I was lucky to be one of the people who was trained or who had the pleasure to collaborate with Steve Blank in the Middle East. And I had the pleasure to meet and work with Alex and Eric as well. So we decided to build, out of all these contexts, we decided to build Global Entrepreneurship, Student Academy for Global Entrepreneurship. For students, we provide 21st century skills. We were giving them a group of people, access to a group of people to help them become global citizens and inspire memories. For parents, we believe the certification process will be an employability booster as well as give them access to role models and alumni of the group. And an additional factor that we stressed upon is we are being partnered with US institutions that are able to provide credible certifications that will be useful for university admissions, if that's something that the parents need as well. For schools, for high schools in general, we're helping them match the competition globally, give them a network of schools that are doing the practice work. And also, it's very hard to find world-class instructors without paying thousands of dollars. So we're giving them this opportunity with minimum cost. So we have value for all of these groups. So in short, SAGE is the Global Entrepreneurship and Innovation Awareness Program. We don't necessarily want the children to be entrepreneurs, for-profit entrepreneurs, but we want to give them the perspective, the mindset, and the skill set necessary to do so. So we'll be sharing you our updated website shortly. We have been trying our content, curriculum, and videos with high schools and multiple students, hundreds of students. And the team behind the instruction, the team behind the content is very, very experienced. I mean, we have MIT Enterprise Forum experience, Babson, Berkeley, Stanford, D-School, and all of these international trainers and instructors have contributed to our content. So this is great. So we were very happy. We're very excited about this. But what we are even more excited about is how we can actually start helping you, the parents, engage with their children on an immediate basis. So if you have children over the age of 10, we will be giving you a workshop instruction guide that is aimed to have a 1-hour session with your children or with anybody that, with your cousin, with somebody that you care about. Over the age of 10 is okay, but we believe 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, these age groups will respond really well to this workshop. So we're going to give you that. And in order for us to help you get the workshop instruction right, we will treat you as students. We will treat you as teenagers. So we'll be talking about the context and we'll be talking about the tool. We will be, don't worry, we'll share the PDF with you. So, but we want your contribution and collaboration. Put yourselves in the shoes of a 15-year-old, and we will follow the steps which you can replicate. So it's kind of an example, learning by doing. One of the first critical things that we would like you as a facilitator is to be really good at time planning. So the whole experience will not last more than 1 hour, and we will shorten this period. We're not going to do a 1-hour workshop. We will cut some of the pieces short, but you have to spare 1 hour with 1 to people, kids between those ages. And you can do it in 2 sessions. You can do it in 1 session. We prefer 1 session. And if you make the time planning your priority, you can actually get it done really quick. One thing we really would like you to remember as possible instructors or facilitators is there should be no judgment in this training or in this workshop. Once you are in front of the teenagers, remember you're not there to teach them, you're there to facilitate a learning experience. So if you don't know any of the answers, if you don't know some of the answers to their questions, don't worry. This is not something that there is a right answer for. But in order for you to facilitate the session better, you, your family, your partner, or whoever you're going to be doing this exercise with, could actually do some research. You can search the economics of the country, of your own locality, but you have to go a little deeper than what do you want to be when you grow up discussion with teenagers, because that is going to be very engaging if you follow our instructions. So, excuse me. So how do you do the preparation? Let's say we met you, you are our children, and we will tell you, hey, Izul, hey, Nisa, we want, or hey, Esma, we are going to do a family fun activity this weekend between 3 and 4. Is that something that you would, you have anything else to do? Like, do you have your homeworks? Do you have something else you need to attend to? Just make sure you are asking them their availability. You're not just putting them in a tight schedule. They might have scheduled a meeting with their friends. They might have homeworks. They might have something they want to do. You don't want to kind of interrupt them without asking, because you want their cooperation. If they cooperate, they will learn much faster. So you booked it, and you can tell them you can bring your phone with you. Actually, do bring your phone with you. So we'll ask you a few questions. We'll have a short discussion, short conversation. It will be a fun activity. So once you do that, the conversation will flow. As we said, prepare yourself a little bit if you can. Search for information, search for names, search for startups or entrepreneurs that you would like to talk about that is from your own region. That will be really important if you can choose that one. One thing you need to make sure before you do the workshop is you need to have your screen time, your own screen time, on your smartphone enabled. Let me show you how you can do it. So if you are an Android, this is how you can do it. I don't know if you have already opened your screen time or if you're tracking your screen time, but make sure you are opening your screen time, it's available, and you're having your kids open their screen time. This is the Android version, and this is the iOS version. And once you have these up and running, you don't need to do anything, it's automatic. It just shows you how much time has the phone been open for which app. This is important because we have a direct question about this in the workshop. So you get comfortable, whatever your family's favorite snacks, like veggies, chocolates, nuts, you can prepare them for the fun of it. It's again, interactive session. You can have your pen, paper, or use your iPad or any other digital device to take notes. Those notes might be coming in handy because at the end of the day, you want to reflect back on those. And we also want you to share those with us if possible, so we can learn from what some of the questions were for the startups. So sometimes kids get a little nervous because this is something about real life. And they may feel you're going to force them into something that they don't want. Just tell them, remind them that you are there to support whatever they choose. And this is just a little workshop. And if you do that, we hope they'll be open-minded and will not give you too much of trouble. And then you download the PDF, which I'll be sharing with you in a moment. As I said, smartphones are allowed. You don't need to have pen and paper, or you don't need to be next to a laptop or computer. Phones can be helpful. Kids might want to be engaging with those. The workshop book, which I'll be sharing shortly, is self-explanatory, but if you want to go through it before, maybe the night before, it might help you to kind of catch up or remember what will come next. And we'll get there once we finish the workshop, but don't forget to congratulate yourself. Give yourself a big hug. You are actually trying to do something really important for your children. And that means congratulations, that means the support, and you give yourself a pat on the back. If you have a partner doing that, hug each other out. And always remember that this is for the best interest of your children. And it might also help you. So I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint now because I have another screen that I need to share with you. And in the meantime, I'm just going to ask you if you have your screen times enabled. I hope you do. Because I wanted to share it. So let's do this. Probably a little easier. Sorry. Okay. So as we said, whenever you need to get back in touch with us, you can use Umut's email or our social media channels. Thank you for being part of the work. So here's what you do. There's 5 sessions, 5 different questions, and you can look at them as like points to move across. And you're going to start, some of the questions are really hook questions to start conversations. And again, for the sake of your practice, we will do the workshop treating you as teenagers. So we'll ask your cooperation, ask your questions, and then we will kind of continue with the flow of the conversation. So you have your setup, everything's fine. The first thing you do is you read this text, or you have your students or teenagers read the text. It talks about a general framework. I mean, we don't need to do this now, but you also see it on the screen, probably you're reading already. This is only to give them the context. This is only to tell them what this is going to be about, and that they don't need to worry. Everything's under control. Nothing bad can come out of it. So then we start, and you go by asking, "Hey, Vanizu," or Nissa, if she's able to unmute herself. What is entrepreneurship and what is knowledge? Let's pretend you're children, but you can actually answer this as an adult. And not many adults also have a clear understanding of what entrepreneurship and innovation is. So one is you can unmute yourself. You can type it in the chat if you have the little one making noises. But what is entrepreneurship? What is innovation? And Burak, Umut, you can also join in. We have done a version of this workshop with you, but some things have changed. You can type it in the chat, you can unmute yourself and talk about it. Either way, it's going to work. I need to say something. In Turkish, we have a saying, we have a word called hadi, means do it quickly. Let's move this. That is going to work. Okay, let's go. So what is entrepreneurship? What is innovation? And remember, there's no right answer. We're not looking for a textbook definition, but your children will probably either would like to say something, or if they are not sure, they will probably say, I don't know. And a good answer to that question is, okay, why don't you Google it? This could also be helpful since they have their smartphones, and smartphones is kind of embedded in the process. So they are probably living and breathing with their smartphone. So that is one way to help them engage. So innovation is bringing unrelated things together, building new things. That is a very good description. Being self-aligned and generating income with one's efforts. That is also a very good question, a very good answer. So your kids will come up with answers like this. None of them will be wrong. None of them will be completely right. But there's no right or wrong answer anyways. Do we want something else? So you go, okay, great. Thank you so much. Wonderful. I'm happy that you have an answer to that. And then you actually are going to ask them another very hook question. Do you think entrepreneurship or innovation is important? Like if this is your description, do you think self-reliance and generating income with one's effort is important? Or do you think innovation, bringing new things is important? This is intentionally a yes or no question. Because they will probably say, as usually kids do, they'll choose the easiest one. They'll say, yes, it's important. Or they'll say, well, I don't think that's important. There are other things that are more important than that. And, or maybe your children or whoever you're doing this exercise will go like, well, I don't know. Or if they're really teenagers getting into puberty, they'll say, nah, I don't care about this thing. So they might have a negative attitude towards the exercise, as in everything else. So you go like, okay, yes, no, or I don't know, and you follow with an answer. Why do you think it's not important or it's important? Okay, let's go. Let's try this with one issue. Why do you think entrepreneurship is, or do you think entrepreneurship is important or not? I think since you started with self-reliance, your answer will probably be yes, it's important. And then my question would be, why is it important?
In my opinion, entrepreneurship is important. Why? Because I think we cannot rely on the traditional way of generating our own income.
So that is very true.
Yeah.
That is very true.
So I mean, to generate more income, I mean, there's nothing more beneficial than doing it ourselves, making jobs for others.
Perfect. So that's a very good answer. It's important because you want to create a reliance, you want to create income, and you don't want to rely on large corporations who can exist one day and then disappear the other day. Perfect. So your children are now engaging, or your audience is now engaging, and then you get into the real side of the curious questions. And you're like, okay, great one, thank you. I say, can you count how many times have you interacted with products that entrepreneurs dreamt, built, and presented to you since you woke up? So this is an interesting, curious question because we as adults, we don't think entrepreneurs are with us when we wake up. We think, even for us who have observed the transition from telephone to internet, from desktop to laptop to mobile to artificial intelligence, even now, we don't fully understand why entrepreneurs, what entrepreneurs are doing for our life. And the way you frame this question, we suggest you frame this question, you can choose your own words, is they will probably look puzzled, like, what do you mean since I woke up? Like, I don't know, I didn't meet anyone, I was in the house all day. How can I meet an entrepreneur? How can I get a product from an entrepreneur after I woke up? Because they actually don't realize they are surrounded by entrepreneurs, much like we don't realize most of the time. So usually, their typical answer to this will be like, I have no idea. I don't know what you're talking about. And that's actually when you start getting them very curious, and that's where you hook them. And then you immediately start talking about smartphones. It's very easy, it's very informative. It's like you can use your own, you can do your own research or use the prompts over here, and you can go directly like, do you know who built the smartphone you're using? Have you heard about a name called Steve Jobs or Steve Wozniak? Have you heard about a company called Google? And they will start laughing. Of course they heard about these, but they probably did not think any one of these has anything to do with entrepreneurship. And the more you start using these prompts and the more you explain, well, Apple is a company, it's an entrepreneurial endeavor, it's a startup, it was a startup in 1976. Probably you are younger than Apple, but you're older than Apple, it depends on the age. But you go like, okay, Jobs was born in 55, Wozniak was born in 50, and they met in high school when Steve Jobs was in high school, and they started Apple. So it was an entrepreneurial endeavor. They had no idea about mobile phones that someday a teenager will be holding in their hands, but that's how they started the company. Same with Samsung. Samsung is even funnier. It started as a grocery store by an entrepreneur who used other advantages, and in 69, they started doing electronics, and now we have Samsung. For Google, they were trying to find a way to do better search, 1988, and they were university students, they were super young. And the phone, the operating system the phone is using is only as old as 2005. So these prompts and any other examples that you can give to them, when they were curious about, we'll start giving them the context of what entrepreneurship is. Entrepreneurship is building new things, taking advantage of new stuff. And you don't have to be super old. You don't need to be a rich person. You can be a high school student trying to do it. So you got that right. And now comes the surprise attack. You actually ask your children, or now we're going to be asking you, show us your screen time. The reason why we're doing that is not to ask them why they're using so much YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, whichever tool they're using, but to actually get them into thinking, what would happen if the owners of those apps decided to shut them down tomorrow? So that question will probably leave them very puzzled and in disbelief. We also don't feel that this is a possibility, and we don't know what to do if any of these services get a temporary shutdown. So something happens with their servers, that happened to Instagram many times. And we as adults feel we're missing out on something, but this is not how we were born with. We have alternatives. You can go and read a book, but that's not how our kids will be doing. So the minute you tell them they can disappear, they will be in shock and disbelief, as I said. And don't laugh if you can hold it, because this is where you actually give them the message, which is these companies are owned by individuals. They are managed by individuals. They are making a lot of money, but if they don't now, if there's something goes wrong and if they don't make any money from those, they can shut them down. So, or they can shut some features out, which happens many times for Snapchat. They can change anything they want in the product they're using because they own them, they created them. Google can buy them anytime and they can shut them off. Same thing happens with Google Plus and many others. And all startups, even large companies now who were startups once, can die. We all had Kodak memories. And if you have old photo albums of your family and friends of yourself, you can show it to them as analog, not even digital. So again, more examples. There used to be a company called Blockbusters, or we used to have a video store nearby. We used to go buy or rent videos or buy or rent DVDs. Now they all disappeared. We're just plugging in, buying a subscription, and watching everything on Netflix. So things that are seemingly always there might have started as something else, like bourbon, which was the initial idea that the founders had for Instagram, but they failed in competing with Foursquare, and they decided to shut that down, and instead created or focused on images, quite accidentally, to be honest. So that is why it's really important to have these conversations with them. And eventually you get to the ending where the purpose is to kind of talk about your own future, your own past. What have you done? What did you love? How did you decide on your career? You realize that children don't have these conversations with parents frequently. So this is where you can get really deep as you want on your life's journey in terms of careers and money making. You can very easily steer the conversation. Could be even an optional. You can steer the conversation on how these companies are making money, why all these apps that they use so much time in are free. And you can talk about business models if you feel like your children are old enough to figure that out. Some of them do actually. They understand that seeing advertisements is something they don't want, but they have to accept because otherwise they don't have the money to pay for these services. But that could be a little complex for some children. So eventually, you can talk about, depending on your research and availability, you can talk about the gig economy. You can talk about on-demand services. Most of these services did not exist, but currently they are providing more income to individuals, especially young individuals, out of college or in college. They provide livelihoods. Nothing that we can do about it, but most of these individuals are now not employed. They have some means of making money, but they're not employed in the regular or conventional sense, which will be a key point. So at the end of all these discussions, depending on how long it lasts, you can guide them towards more. You don't need to be there. You don't need to do anything on specifically for those, but tell them that they can search more, they can read more, they can ask more questions to you. Therefore, this exercise is just a small tool to kind of help you get into the dynamics of innovation and entrepreneurship discussions. We find that really important and really helpful. And that's why we're giving away this workshop model for free. So you can use it however you want it. And we only want your feedback. So once you do a workshop, just let us know what went right, what went wrong. If your children surprised you, if they disappointed you, or they made you positively surprised, just share with us what you're able to learn. And with that, I think we are almost in time. Starting on time, so everything's working fine. Let me stop the screen. And I think we lost one Zoom, but Nisa didn't hear. I hope you were able to hear us. We can't hear you, but this was informative for you. So if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer. If not, we have your email, and we'll make sure you get our workshop PDF and the slides. So you can even try this weekend, which could be fun. So thank you. Lisa, one last try. Actually, let me stop recording.